Bismillah. Walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So I have been making a few little posts and videos over the last several months related to some health things. And today I had posted a few quotes from a book that I've been reading that I've really been enjoying, that I have found quite enlightening. And so I thought I would kind of clarify a little bit of what I was talking about. So the book in question is called Metabolical, and it's by Robert Lustig, who is an MD, MSL, and it's a portmanteau or a combination of metabolic and diabolical. So, it's a little over the top in its title, but it's really great. And so what I've noticed is that when I have posted some articles that advocate for the eating of meat, there's a lot of people who react quite fervently and zealotly. They have a lot of zealotry in their responses. And I think what's being misunderstood is that my comments about eating meat are more of a pushback against this kind of new pseudo-religion that is so-called plant-based eating. And one of the issues I have with it is not eating plants. I mean, I eat plants. I am not on the carnivore diet. I do eat a fair amount of meat, but I am not on the carnivore diet. And so I wanted to clarify, exactly kind of what have I meant by all of this. And so one, yes, I do have issues with the kind of almost quasi-religious nature that some people, including some Muslims, have had about plant-based eating, and almost shaming to the point those who don't subscribe to eating a purely plant-based diet. And so people have been sending me, well, you have to look at this study and you have to look at that book. And ironically, I think every study that they showed me, I've read, and all of the books I have in my personal library. And part of that is I've been on my own, journey towards trying to have better health over the last, say, 15 years at least. And so what I liked about Lustig's book is that one of the things that he talks about is, there's no need to really have to pick a side. If, for instance, you find that being on a plant-based diet works well for you and it does good for you, then that's great. I don't really have any dog in that fight of you having to eat or not eating meat. My only issue that I have is that when Muslims in particular try to advocate for a plant-based diet on a quasi-religious grounds, to where they try to go back and sort of rewrite the history and say that the Prophet, for instance, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was a vegetarian, or these other things, which is clearly not the case. And they've tried to extrapolate from how much meat that they perceived that he ate, and trying to make that into kind of either like a kind of istinbat or hukm shar'i, or anyway, whatever. And again, my thing is, if you want to eat a plant-based diet, that's fine, as long as that we don't go to extremes to where we deem eating meat to be cruel in and of itself. I am very cognizant of modern agricultural practices, or particularly as it relates to meat. Well, I guess they're all kind of related, right? That definitely can be cruel and unusual in their punishment towards animals. And I'm I agree with all those things. That, however, cannot be extended further beyond a criticism of those particular practices, and not to where eating meat now becomes indicted altogether, right? No one has the authority or the capacity to make eating meat blameworthy, let alone impermissible. But the other part that I like about him is that in his book, he also says that, look, the data clearly shows that human beings, we all have vast different needs. And that there are some people, he says, for instance, that will clearly benefit from a low-fat, higher carb-ish, plant-based diet. There's some people that because of their situation or because of their physiology, because of what's going on with them, it will work for them, right? However, there are also clearly people, and I am one of them that I can so far thus see, that clearly benefits from eating a animal-heavy diet, of which obviously not just any animal protein, but the best possible animal protein. So, grass-fed, pasture-raised, on and on. And so he talks a lot through the book that this idea that a calorie is just a calorie, and you can extend that to, for instance, a protein is just a protein, is clearly not the case. And I was watching a video the other day by Sten Ekberg, who's a holistic doctor. It's a great YouTube channel, and he was talking about people who make the claim about, eating a plant-based diet. He's like, I do. I just happen to, when it comes to the processing of plants, I like to let my animals eat them first, and then I eat the animals, because they're much, much better at processing plants than I am as a human being. And I thought that was kind of, it was a little bit funny, but, a very, very interesting insight. And so there's really no need for people to have to choose these kind of ideological lines. When I put up my piece about this, I'm encouraging people to, one, think about their health comprehensively and look to some other areas that maybe they had discounted because, again, of this new fervor about eating a plant-based lifestyle, as if that's a response for everything. And that's clearly, or that's a solution for everything, and that's clearly not the case. He talks about Michael Pollan, right, the author who became very famous for writing about food, and he talks about his New York Times Magazine article entitled, I think it was called "Eat Food" or something like that. And in it now he gives this advice in where he says, eat food, not much, mostly plants. But, Lustig says, there's a couple things that are a little bit misleading about that and actually don't really give us anything quite as substantive as we think. So he says, for instance, when you say eat food, it doesn't take into account that some people may do better on a low-fat diet while others may do better on a high-fat diet, right? So just saying eat food, well, what is that? That's what we're all doing, and unfortunately, particularly in Western countries and those that have adopted a Western approach to eating and producing their food are increasingly more and more sick. He said, not too much, right? Doesn't say how you're supposed to moderate that, right? Well, not too much for one may be, not enough for another, or vice versa, right? It also doesn't take into account what he talks about are types of food addiction, such as sugar and those other things, as also what really generates satiety, like what makes you feel full and satisfied. Well, fat to a large degree is going to do that. And then the last part of Pollan's statement, mostly plants, he says doesn't take into account that Coke, French fries, and Doritos, and of course we can go into a whole bunch of other processed processed food products that are all plant-based, right? If you buy your organic, all-natural, GMO-free tortilla chips at Whole Foods, you're still stuffing your liver and starving your gut. You're just paying more for the privilege. And so while those things sound great as a slogan and they do well to fit into a tweet, they don't really get down to brass tacks of determining what is best needed. And so, one part of how he highlights some of this zealotry in chapter 3 of his book, again, Metabolical, he said, a recent example of zealotry became evident during the 2019 skirmish over whether red meat is good for you or not. A nonprofit scientific group calling itself Nutrirex, headed by Gordon Guyatt, who's the originator of the grade system of evidence-based medicine, published a meta-analysis in the Annals of Internal Medicine, this is a medical journal, that couldn't conclude that red meat was bad for health. They didn't conclude it was good for health either, but just not bad. And so as a response to this, he said a nonprofit nutritional education organization, which is different than something that is, evidence-based and medical-based, right? He said a nonprofit nutritional educational organization called True Health Initiative, headed by self-proclaimed nutritional entrepreneur and anti-meat advocate David Katz, upon reading the embargoed press release, launched an all-out attack on Annals, right, the journal, in an office in Philadelphia for publishing the article. And he said what True Health Initiative leaves out is that they're equally, if not more, conflated, because he was trying to say, oh, well, they published this findings, and the issue is all these scientists have some type of relationship with big ag, financially funded or otherwise. And what Lustig points out is that this educational nonprofit advocacy group, are they themselves even more in the pocket of lobbyists? And he said they're equally, if not more, conflicted with a web of cash receipts or endorsements from the likes of hashtag No Beef, the Olive Wellness Institute, the Plantrition Project, Wholesome Goodness, Corn, and the California Walnut Commission. And so he goes to show that there also is equally, in the pockets of lobbyists. And so there are studies and there are inferences, but they're not necessarily direct causative that eating meat does this or that. And so what I have found in my own case of, doing some experimentation, getting my lab results done. And again, it's not that meat is the secret sauce to this, right? I mean, obviously exercising, stress management, sleep, weightlifting, as some of you have seen, right? Walking, exercise, like comprehensively, right? Dealing with it, which has allowed me to, in the last, say, 11 months, to lose about 40 to 45 pounds. And more importantly, to bring my A1C under 5.5, which is to essentially non-symptomatic for type 2 diabetes. And so what I have found in my own personal journey is that eating meat has been an important and integral part of that. Not that all I do is eat meat, but that I eat meat, right? So I do tend to eat a protein heavy diet, but I probably eat number one, I eat a fat heavy diet and then a protein, and then, obviously I'm on a fairly low carb regimen. I eat a lot of broccoli, a lot of cauliflower. I like to have greens. I mean, I had a big salad yesterday at lunch with a lot of olive oil. And so my whole point of this is that, one, take time to find out what works for your body. And one beautiful part in the book that he talks about is that, this kind of cookie cutter, one size fits all approach of modern medicine is really doing damage to a lot of people. And he shows that there is more than adequate evidence that, medicine has to be tailored to a person's gender, race, age, and environment. And so, if you've been suffering from some health issues and you've been trying, say, a plant-based diet, and you try that and you find that you're just not getting the traction that you want, my advice would be, well, do not feel that you have to obtain good health exclusively through a plant-based diet. That perhaps what you need is a diet that also incorporates animal products. And so likewise, if you're finding, and I know I have a good friend of mine that actually they had to give up eating meat because their body was, for whatever reason, was not tolerating it well. And so again, when I make these posts, sometimes, I'm known to have sometimes a sort of, tongue-in-cheek sense of humor. And I do like to poke fun at these quasi, religious movements about food and plants that have their roots in, either, some type of paganistic religion or even offshoots of Christianity. I mean, he talks a lot about, well, where did the plant-based diet movement come from, that it's not as soundly based upon medicine and scientific findings as people think, as much as it came out of the Seventh-day Adventist, right? Like not too far from here at Loma Linda Hospital. I mean, there, that came out of people who were followers of Seventh-day Adventism. And so again, take the time to find out what works for your body. In my case, being on a higher fat, lower carb diet, eating high quality, for me, I eat a lot of grass-fed beef. I eat a lot of pasture-raised chicken, and I eat a lot of organic pasture-raised eggs. I probably eat 4 to 6 eggs a day. And again, you will talk about people that say, perhaps for some people, maybe eggs aren't a good thing. For me, again, given the fact that I've been doing this for a year now and I've been able to, alhamdulillah, obtain some beneficial results that go beyond not only the weight loss, that not only go beyond, the controlling of the diabetes, but when I had my issue with my diabetes, I had many other secondary issues as well, arthritis and, a whole bunch of other things that, alhamdulillah, have really cleared up and have given me, a new opportunity to have some better health now that I am right on the doorstep of my 5th decade, inshallah. And I would like, may Allah Ta'ala open the door for all of us to better health. I would like for these coming decades, which will undoubtedly, right, I'll be skating downhill, but I would like for it to be as much of a controlled descent as possible. And so I just, wanted to share why I was, what was the source that I was getting some of those quotes from, and why was I talking about them, and that I appreciate, all the feedback and whatnot, and some of the critiques, and alhamdulillah, just be prepared that I will probably have my own counter critiques, because I've been going at this for a while. And not only have I, kind of gotten fed up with following, obviously, conventional medicine that did absolutely nothing for my issues, but also some of these quasi-religious health, movements that also didn't, and I did play around with the whole plant-based thing, and it just simply did not agree with me. In fact, a lot of, as I began to incorporate a bit more meat in my diet and isolate what types of vegetables that I was eating, I actually found that my health also improved, because a great number of the plants that I was eating were also causing me some health issues, right? And again, that idea that plant-based is automatically healthy and good is kind of sloppy, and that's why I like his book. So if you get a chance, check it out. It's called Metabolical by Robert Lustig. He has a couple of good videos on YouTube that you can also check out. I think you might enjoy. So anyway, just sharing these. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah Ta'ala bless all of you in your health and your iman. وصلوات الله تعالى على النبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم.